a very simple. All right. Okay. So this is just a way of defining the event emitter. So let's say um, in your application, let's say you have multiple services. You understand? You have the authentication service, you have the email service. Let's say that is running somewhere, let's say like in another process. Understand? Just your system is just kind of decoupled. Understand? So you want it in such a way that whenever a user logs into to your application, the the application emits an event. Understand? And then wherever um, the handler was defined, as in this case, let's say this one is in the um, even though we wrote it in the same inside the same function. Let's say this is the port service, no email service. This is the email service, and this is the authentication service. Okay. Even though we wrote it inside the same function, you understand? Normally, you will not be using it inside the same function. Like you will not be defining the events in one function and also be emitting events in that same function. Normally, you do it in different modules. You understand? So to just see that just see these two things as different files. So we defined the handler, which is this event name, and then the callback function. Okay. So in the authentication service, the user logs in, you understand? You log them in, then you now emit this event, user logged in, and then this handler catches it and then now calls this function, this callback function. And then that's how we now see sending security email telling the user that someone with this IP address logged into your account. Are you sure this is you? You know, that kind of thing. If this is not you, click here. Understand? And then welcome back, CJ. So that is basically how the event emitter works in Node.js. So you basically use this a lot, you understand, when you want to develop an application that is kind of that is loosely coupled, you understand, where everything is running on their own, and then you can emit an event somewhere, and then the handler catches it somewhere else and processes it. So that is it for event emitters. And then the callback pattern. Yes. So all those that callback that you're asking me about a while ago, this is basically how you define a callback. Okay. So a callback is just basically a normal function. You understand? It can be this fetch user function. It can be um, it can be this fetch user function. It can be the argument of fetch user function. It can be anything that is a function. Understand? That is passed to that function while calling them. Okay. So here, if you can see my screen, you see in this under this simple callback example, you see that we defined the fetch user. Let me make this bigger. Um, okay, you should be able to see this better now. So we defined a fetch user function, and this first fetch user function takes in two arguments, the ID and then a callback function. Understand? But then we now define a set timeout function. This set timeout function is just we are just trying to like mimic a database call, you understand? And this database call will take like 1 second before it completes. So we just want to do that small delay. Then after it now completes, it now calls this callback function, understand? ID and then the callback function now executes with these parameters. So after defining fetch user function, we now call fetch user. This is it. See the way we call the function and see the way we define it. They're different. Mhm. So we pass the user ID, which is this first argument, one, comma, then the function, the callback. This is now another function on its own. You understand? You can store this function in a variable and then just write the variable name here. You can do that, or you can just define the function directly as an argument while calling this other fetch user function. Hope I'm not confusing you guys. Hope I'm not confusing you guys. Hello. All right. And then we now have the callback here. We now have the callback here. This callback here is something that is a term that should stick in your memory. Because any code base you find this callback here, just know that you're about to have a bad ride. Because a callback here is basically when you are nesting callbacks upon callbacks upon callbacks. Okay? Take for example, this fetch user function that we are calling here is still the same first user that we defined here, okay? But we're not calling it here now. But we're not passing a lot of callbacks in it. How did this happen? We are calling callback, we pass the user ID one, comma, and this is the function. This is the first function. And then that first function now has if error, return, just console to the just console the error, this thing output, this error, the particular error. And then if no error, run this again, fetch user and fetch post rather. Understand? Fetch post using the user.id. You just ignore this one, but you know you're just passing another ID again. Understand? Comma. And this is now another callback that is passed to fetch post. Then inside fetch post again, inside that callback, you now have another fetch comment where you're passing the comment ID and then the callback to handle the fetch comments function. And then that kind of thing. And you see that at this point, we've had like about one, two, three callbacks inside of fetch user. So it can be very bad, you understand? It's not a very good coding practice to have this kind of structure. So one thing you will do to avoid this kind of callback errors is to make use of promises. Okay? And these promises are chainable. Okay? So instead of saying with this callback now, maybe after this first one, or even without this first callback, fetch user. So you now make a database call, and then this your user, John, now gets returned. Understand? So after John gets returned, we will now want to fetch post. But instead of doing it this way, it's actually a better way to do it. And I'll explain that now. This will be our last example, okay, before we end today's class. Okay, so this example is for example 17. Okay, This is like, okay, I want to define my function outside the main. Very important. I'm just copying the example in the slide. No, maybe, maybe, second argument, only for 1 second. Okay. So that's the fetch user function implementation. Um, okay. Implementing it. So I have not defined this fetch user promise yet. Okay. But if I had defined it, it's going to be called this way instead of using a callback here. I'll pass my user ID. Okay, this is the fetch user function. So I'm trying to eliminate this callback instead of using callbacks. So let's just the dummy function. Dummy is equal to ID. No, this one. Yeah. Okay. And so I think our time is up. We will have to pause the class here. Okay. We'll have to pause the class here. But this is basically what the code, our code will look like if without that callback, that callback here that we saw in this example here. we have fetch post instead of fetch user. We have fetch post instead of fetch user and fetch comment instead of fetch post, and just all those nested loops. Okay, so all those nested calls rather. So it would be this way. Fetch comment. Let's see this. Okay. Instead of using this first fetch user that has the callback, we will just define the fetch user promise that returns the user that was fetched. Understand? After it returns it, this dot then function captures it, and then it now passes that user as an argument for this second function. This is a callback, but then this callback doesn't have a nested callback in it. So after this executes successfully, this second fetch post, understand, this is the user ID, it now returns, and then this this second dot then method now captures the post that was returned here. And then it processes it beginning to fetch comments. And then if any of this chain should throw an error, this dot catch will catch it, and then it just helpful to the console. Okay. So thank you very much for having me here today, guys. Tomorrow we will go deeper into all of this and also learn some syntax when coding with Node.js, and we'll see how they were improved slightly from the regular JavaScript for browsers. Understand? So you see that Node.js JavaScript is slightly improved. You will not see difference. So if you know web JavaScript, you'll be able to write Node.js without any problem. So we've come to the end of this class. Thank you very much, guys. And I will share this material and the code snippets in the group chat after this call, maybe in the next 30 minutes. Thank you very much. Have a good night. And if you have a question, just keep it for tomorrow, okay? I don't want to hold you guys down again.
Sorry, sir. Before you go, are you there?
Yeah, me too.
Is this class taking place every day, or does it still work with the old schedule? That's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay. So the reason why we weren't able to hold it yesterday was because I was stuck in traffic. Understand? I was stuck in
Okay.
traffic and I got home very late. So I had to push it to today. So tomorrow the class will hold same time. And then Friday as well. God's willing.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
No problem.
Yeah. Thank you very much.